Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wake Up American. This is the daily American English pronunciation show where we give you some sounds and topics to practice with every single day because that's the key with pronunciation. You have to show up a little bit every day. You have to practice a little bit every day. If you don't, what ends up happening? You feel rusty. You feel slower the next day. You forget. You aren't able to implement what you studied into what you say. So it's really key with pronunciation to study a little bit every single day. And that's why we are here to help with our daily live stream, Wake Up America, Monday through Friday. I will be your host. My name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath, which is one of the four key ingredients to a natural American accent, including placement, pitch, weakening consonant sounds, and again, breath. There's a fifth ingredient that we haven't discussed much, which I think is very, very important. And I don't see a whole lot of other channels necessarily mentioning it. We've talked about it in the past, fortunately. Hello to Shok. And this concept has to do more with psychology. And today we're not going to be doing exercises. If you're looking for exercises, we have those, of course, in our pronunciation group on Telegram. I'll be there later today posting a challenge. Members of the group, they can send in their own audio files and I give them suggestions. We currently have 8 spots left. If you would like to join our Telegram group, you can go to fluentamerican.com. The aspect that a lot of channels are not talking about is the psychological aspects of pronunciation. I was working with a student last night, and actually, I mean, this happens very regularly. I work with a lot of students, and what we do is, we're practicing a sound, and I talk about things like placement and breath, and so we're targeting them. But sometimes students have difficulty with it. Sometimes I'll do like uh 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 you can hear that range of pitches hopefully, but sometimes students get a little stuck, right? Do you hear how I didn't go as down that time? And the reason isn't because we can't do that physically, because sometimes we'll do another exercise where we'll drag the sound, do like and then they'll do that and they can hit that low point. But then when they do it on their own in steps, that's when we run into difficulties. And so there's obviously something happening. There are times when we try to produce a sound and we just have difficulty. Like another example, maybe we're working on like a dark L sound, which makes like an uh like for instance in a word like pencil, pencil, you hear that sound. However, a lot of students have not been taught about the dark L, or they assume that an L makes an uh, uh type sound. So even if we'll practice doing an then we try to say the word pencil and we still go back, right? We say pencil versus pencil. So I've spent a lot of time kind of just thinking about what's happening, because obviously the sound itself isn't the issue, because there are times when we're producing that sound. That sound is clearly coming through and it's not causing any sort of problems. But then when we put it in new situations, that's when we're running into the difficulty. And what I've decided, or what I believe the issue to be, has to do a bit with psychology and fear. We have been taught to produce sounds a certain way. We've been taught that from our first language. We've been taught that from our education. We've been taught that by ourselves to a degree, because as we learn a language, we have to understand we're biased when we learn a new language. We have to understand that we are projecting aspects of our first language, in addition, again, to the education and things like that, onto our second language. And when we do that, in many ways, we are preventing ourselves from taking on aspects of the second language. We're almost like creating a wall. And it's not just wall, it's like a soundproof wall. Like we're not even allowing ourselves to hear the alternatives. And we have this idea that a sound has to be pronounced a very specific way, where like an N sound has to sound like N, or like an L sound has to sound like L, or a T sound has to sound like T. You know, and this happens for vowels as well, but I see it especially with consonant sounds. We also have to understand that our language is markedly different than American English. Most other languages have much heavier emphasis on a syllable timed rhythm. So the rhythm sounds like da, 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 very choppy, very regular. Some patterns with this include heavier consonant sounds, shorter vowel sounds, and much clearer, crisper syllables that are very clearly defined. American English is not like that. American English does not have a pattern like da, 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 da. The pattern in American English is da, 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 da. And while students can do that exercise with me and practice it, I think that what I see a lot is psychologically, this is going against so much of what we're used to. Maybe not for that specific exercise, but when we actually begin pronouncing words and entire sentences. Because American English is going to require you to use softer syllables. It's going to require you to reduce portions of words to the point where they may no longer be there. And if you're coming from a language where that doesn't happen, or if no one has taught you this and you've studied English for 10 years, 20 years, like many of you have, this can make you really uncomfortable because even if you do the exercises with me, there's still a portion of our mind that's like, wait a minute. Yeah, I hear what I'm being told, but I want to make sure that my word is clear. I want to make sure that this is coming across. Because if I get too lazy, if I take the sound away too much, no one's going to understand me. And I think we have to eventually come to terms with the fact that if our goal is a natural sound in American English, not clarity, it's okay to have clarity as your goal. If you want very clear English, do that. Cool. I'm not the channel for you. There are most other pronunciation channels out there focus on clarity and sounding clear. I'm not interested in clarity. I'm interested in sounding natural. And in my opinion, sounding clear is not the same thing as sounding natural. In fact, the tools you're using that make your speech clear are very often the very same tools that do not let you sound natural. When you are speaking super, super clear English, it's understandable. That's great. It's also not the type of English that native speakers use, because native speakers use an English that's much messier, that's lacking in clarity. You know, we're taking a phrase to give an example, like if I use the phrase, I didn't know that. So I did that very clearly right there. I didn't know that. I can make it even clearer. I can make that TH on that sharper. I didn't know that. Okay. That's not how native speakers talk. Native speakers would say that. I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Very different sound. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Where are the sounds going? I'm not saying didn't. I'm saying didn't. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that. So we're seeing some pretty big structural differences, right? And I think what I see with a lot of students who struggle with concepts like placement and breath, the issue isn't that they physically struggle with the things, is that there's this fear that comes up because it's like, oh my gosh, if I do this, it's going to feel so weird to me. How is anyone going to understand me? Like if I say that instead of that, how can anyone understand that? But the reality is they will. And in fact, they expect it. In American English, your listener is listening, especially for your vowel sounds. Your consonant sounds very often can become super reduced, weak, and at times even removed, and your listener won't even know. As long as you use the right vowel sound in the right context, your listener's mind is going to understand it. We need to trust our listener. We've been taught that we're second language learner, and so we need to be very clear because people won't understand us. We've basically been taught that people won't understand us because we have an accent. When in reality, what we need to be taught is that your listener's brain is a powerful thing. And as long as you can get a sound that's close enough to what they expect, they will understand you. It doesn't need to be perfect. The perfect is what's causing the accent. So just something that you want to focus on. We really want to try to focus on the actual sounds people are using. And you need to trust yourself that even if it feels very strange to you, that might actually be a sign that what you're doing is actually more natural than your normal talk. We have to trust our listener is going to understand us if we're meeting their general expectations. If we go for clarity, we're just never going to be able to achieve the natural sound that most likely you want if you're following my channel. So what I would encourage you to do is, for instance, when you're watching a show, try not to use subtitles. Or if you're listening to an audiobook, try not to look at the text. Try to treat your learning much more like how a child approaches learning when they're learning to talk. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to read. The only thing that they have is the sound. The sound is the thing. So what they do is, they're just listening to other people and they're really trying to copy those sounds. It's like when you're shadowing, try not to use the transcript. Try to just pay attention to the sounds that they're using. And even if they don't make sense to you, try to copy those sounds. Like if they say something like, I don't know. Well, don't say, I didn't know, or I did not know, because that's not the same thing, right? They said, I don't know. Then you need to say, I don't know, trying to get the same exact sound. We're really trying to copy the sound. The sound is the thing. And I know it can be scary because I'm taking away a lot of the tools that you want to use for clarity. But again, those are the things that are at the same time holding you back. So that's kind of just the main thing I wanted to voice today. I'm sorry, it's not necessarily a pronunciation exercise today, but just really trying to pay attention to the psychological aspects of pronunciation. We have to not approach, changing sounds as like being lazy or being afraid that people aren't going to understand us. The more that you can embrace just the specific sound. So if I say, don't say pencil, say pencil. Or don't say moon, say moon. Don't say and then, say and then. Really just trying to target the specific forms that you hear, because that's going to help us achieve a more natural sound. What are your thoughts on this, guys? You can post them in the chat or post them in the comments afterwards. I wish you a good day. We'll get another exercise in tomorrow. You guys take care. Have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good afternoon. And I will see you later.